morning to all, and to all, welcome to the State Capitol of Nevada. Special Assistant Coordinator Angela Palmer, please take roll.
Chair Ariscotta,
Yep.
Vice Chair Cruz Crawford, Regent Boylan,
Here.
Regent Breaker,
Aye.
Regent Del Carlo.
Here.
You do have a
Goodness.
quorum.
Wonderful. For all those with the ability, please stand, and Regent Del Carlo, be please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. Before beginning, we take a moment to recognize that here in Nevada, we stand on the land of the Washishu, Washoe, the Numu, Northern Paiute, the Niue, the Western Shoshone, and the Nuwu, Southern Paiute. We take a moment to recognize and honor their stewardship that continues into today. With this recognition, we state an intention to rightfully include their voice and respect them as the 27 sovereign tribal nations of Nevada. So we're going to move on to public comment. We'll take public comment from the outside locations. We're going to start at GBC and Elko. Is there any public comment in Elko?
There's none at this time.
Thank you. Is there any public comment from the Reno Systems Administration Office? Does not sound like it. Is there any public comment in Las Vegas?
Regent Ariscotta, this is Susan Brager. Commissioner Kirkpatrick asked if I may read something into the record for her, and I'm going to ask for that privilege due to the fact that she tried to attach it in our system and it would not attach. Are you okay with that?
Granted, 100%.
Oh, you know
please.
what? Okay, and this is for, of course, the Audit Committee. It says, dear, and I'm sorry, it's on my phone because I just got it, so it's going to take me going back and forth to be able to read it. Good morning. I wanted to take a moment and talk about the great relationship that I personally have with the Cooperative Extension as a Clark County Commissioner and the value that they bring to the community. While serving in the legislature, I worked to understand the role of the Cooperative Extension and the value that it brings to the state. Once I became a Clark County Commissioner, I performed an audit on the Cooperative Extension and began to have conversations with Extension. We have since upgraded our MOUs, which are required by law in Clark County, and created a spend down plan and put some great programming in place. Cooperative Extension meets with commissioners on a regular basis to hear the needs for their districts. Sorry, we have done some amazing programming in the last 7 years. Let's first start with my favorite one. Camp Alamo is a partnership between Clark County, Lincoln County, and Cooperative Extension. The camp is open to the entire state to use as a low-cost and free field trips for students. These are some of the highlights that the Clark County has received from the camp in the last year. Remember, this is only our day camp program and does not include our overnight camps. None of this would have been possible without the amazing staff. 9 schools, 30 classrooms, and 2 youth serving organizations attended the camp field trip to 4-H Camp Alamo. Over 1,000 youth were reached through the in-class curriculum of the field trip. 4-H professionals delivered 8 curriculum sessions to each classroom throughout the school year. In the road trip through the Latin American curriculum, students learned about the rich world of Latin American culture. 54 school professionals and chaperones completed surveys after the field trip to 4-H Camp Alamo. Nearly 100% of the teachers provided a place where youth felt they belonged, were accepted, had the opportunity to do activities they were interested in, and felt safe. Over 86% of respondents agreed that the camp offered a place for youth to practice social skills, learn STEM skills, and learn about stewardship of resources. Regarding the day camp activities, water quality and fishing were the top-rated educational activities, followed by the leadership and teamwork lessons. Tug of war was the hop-rated fun activity, followed by fishing, then field games. Most respondents and the field trip was fun, educational, organized, engaged, age-appropriate, and the staff was acknowledged and inclusive. Thank you so much from Commissioner Kirkpatrick, and I appreciate the time that you allotted to have this being read.
Thank you, Regent Breger, for that. I greatly appreciate it. I was remiss not to, and we're going to continue with Las Vegas in 1 minute. I was remiss not to mention that for those who would like to call in and offer public comment, please dial 669-444-9171 and enter meeting ID 928-4944-5069 and passcode 55555. That was my error. Well, let's go ahead and continue with public comment from Las Vegas. Is there additional public comment in Las Vegas?
No.
Thank you, Regent Breger. And let's go ahead and continue here at beautiful Western Nevada College. Is there any public comment at Western Nevada College? There is.
Good morning, Chair Ariscada, Vice Chair Cruz Crawford, committee members, Kent Irvin, ERVIN, Nevada Faculty Alliance. The Title IX revisions in the handbook being discussed in item 6 are necessary to comply with the new federal regulations. We appreciate positive changes, including the clarification that Title IX's prohibition on sex-based discrimination applies to discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as the broader definition of hostile environment harassment. These provisions are consistent with the broad goal of achieving gender equality. We believe the requirement for all faculty members to be mandatory reporters is counterproductive, however, and violates the autonomy of students and employees and their ability to get advice while requesting confidentiality from a trusted faculty member, colleague, or supervisor. My written submission has a link to more information. However, it is most important that this committee addresses the very real cases of discrimination and power-based violence on our campuses, including sexual assaults and sexual harassments, and how the complaints are handled or mishandled. Many of our students and colleagues report severe incidents in climate surveys and say they do not have faith in our Title IX offices to help or investigate. Yet some regents are more concerned about restrooms and locker rooms. There is an urgent need for uniform, system-wide statistical reporting on the complaints, investigative outcomes, and final dispositions of all Title IX complaints and all other discrimination complaints, employee grievances, and student and employee disciplinary actions. The board needs this full reporting to identify and correct systematic issues. At NFA, we regularly hear complaints about how Title IX and other investigations are handled. Cases that could be resolved at earlier stages escalate into litigation, or frustrated individuals go to the media. To hold the institutions accountable, which is the job of the board, you must at least collect the data and ensure full transparency. So, please use the new business item today to request an agenda item for a policy on full statistical reporting by institution of all types of student and employee complaints and conduct actions, including the numbers and types of complaints, investigations, and outcomes, and including discrimination complaints, Title IX complaints, Chapter 6 investigations, and student conduct actions. Thank you.
Good morning, Regents, Chancellor Carlton. My name is Deborah Arteaga. That's D-E-B-O-R-A-H. Last name A-R-T as in Tom, E-A-G-A. I'm UNLV Faculty Senate Chair, so of course I'm a rebel, but I'm also one of CSN's biggest fans. One reason is their program, CSN High School. There's been a lot said about dual enrollment, but I will tell you about my daughter's experience. She took her high school courses on the CSN campus. The high school teachers were extremely gifted. Then she took college classes, of course, at the same time. But CSN High School doesn't just throw the students to the wolves. They were given a form that they take to their college professors a couple of times during the semester, which lists their current grade, if they have any problem, if they need tutoring. If they do, the high school teachers provide this. So I just want to say that as a mother, CSN does it right. Thank you.
Wonderfully stated. Thank you. We are going to move over to the agenda now, and we're going to focus on agenda item. Oh, I forgot. SCS, is there public comment on the phone?
There's none at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief of Staff. Let's move over to the agenda and let's focus on agenda item number 2 in regards to the consent items. Is there a motion on the table for approval? Yes, Regent Del Carlo?
Yes, I move to approve the 2 consent items in item 2.
Thank you, Regent. Is there a second?
Second.
Aye.
Regent Breger beat you to the punch, or Regent Boylan. Second by Regent Boylan.
Yes, sir.
Baylor. Breger. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed. Gonna go to item number 3, the chair's report. Want to reflect back on my morning today. I'm gonna take a little bit of self-indulgence. Woke up, watched the sun rise with my son. Breakfast, drove through Washoe Valley with the emerald green pastures, cattle grazing with the silhouette of Mount Rose. It was a beautiful day. It's a beautiful morning. Let's make this a great couple of days. So I want to say thank you. In regards to my chair's report, I have a couple of items that are pretty big for the audit committee. Number 1, the chief internal audit. As of right now, we've had 12 total applications, and we've had the advertisement locations, which were approved by the search committee, were with the Nevada System of Higher Education career page, the Chronicle of Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed, higheredjobs.com, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, diversejobs.net, and the Institute of Internal Auditors website. For the audit manager, we've had 15 total applications, and we've had really good success with both searches. In regards to the chief internal auditor, after speaking with CFO Baton, Chief Human Resource Officer Eric Gilliland, and the UNLV Business Affairs Chief Compliance Officer Joe Sunbury, we are currently on target for an October 18th potential special meeting in which the Nevada System of Higher Education will choose its chief internal auditor. So that is my chair's report. One more time, Regent.
Chair Scott, what was the date of that meeting? I want to make sure I have it on my calendar.
I can't give it official.
You just said it, I thought.
I said on or around October 18th.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No problem. Yes, Chief of Staff Nikolajewski.
Just to answer Regent Del Carlo, there already is a special board meeting scheduled that day. So what we will need to schedule is the search committee meeting that will happen prior to that special meeting, where the committee plus the board chair, as the search committee, will interview the candidates.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Chief of Staff has a great job of doing that. She's fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and go to agenda item number 4, which is going to be a follow-up with Cooperative Extension of the University of Nevada, Reno. And for that, we're going to have Dr. Jake DeDecker walk up to the podium. Dr. DeDecker, please.
Thank you, Chair Arascata, Vice Chair and Committee members. Jake D. Decker, Director of Extension and Associate Dean of Engagement for the College of Ag, Biotechnology, and Natural Resources at UNR. It is my honor to be here and have the opportunity to talk about Extension, some of the work that we do. and then be able to talk through a couple key points that are within the audit that is in front of us today. At first, I thought it'd be helpful just to talk a little bit about an overview of Extension and what do we do, where are we located, and how we operate, and then lead into some of the specific points within the audit that I think might be helpful to elaborate on before we ask or address any questions. But a few things to talk about is what do we do is we really take the knowledge at the university and higher ed and apply that to people across the state. We use research, we use scholarship, and we make sure that has tangible impact on people located throughout the state of Nevada. We do that through 35 locations. And so when people ask, are you really statewide? Do you have a few people located across the state of Nevada? We have 350 people located across the state of Nevada. And 35 different program sites, again, located across the state of Nevada. And that's office locations, that's demonstration gardens, that's field research sites, and that's 2 wonderful 4-H camps, one at Lake Tahoe and one down in southern Nevada in Alamo, which we're awfully excited about. Another benefit of having a statewide system is obviously we're involved in urban and rural. Combined together is what are those issues that really look at the state of Nevada as a whole and how can we best address those with all of those different interests in mind. And having one centralized location and network. We are a network within the state of Nevada. We're a network within the Western region. We're a network at the federal level across the nation. So using that network to really pull those resources together, leverage those resources, personnel and expertise, allows us to tap into individual issues within communities and bring those folks together across our vast network to make sure that we are addressing the issues as best as possible. These are the main program areas that we work through, and I know many of you are familiar with that. Children, youth, and families, of course, 4-H fits in that, health and nutrition, and you can see them here. But we work a lot of time between the lines. A lot of the issues that we face in Nevada, whether that's a mental health, food insecurity, fall usually between those and among various different program areas. And so we work collaboratively across all those different program areas to make sure we're bringing the right researchers and expertise to the table to address them. And one thing I wanted to highlight here at the bottom point, the local needs drive programming efforts in each county. I think that's one of the unique and what makes us perhaps the strongest as we position ourselves to make an impact is that we work with counties, we work with communities. Our bosses, our direction, if you will, is the people of Nevada. It's talking with them and understanding what are the needs that they face in everyday life and how can we work to pull those resources together to meet those needs, to educate them and make a difference within their communities. That is one of our strengths is that we are embedded in those communities. We've lived and worked in those communities for over 100 years, and we continue to serve those communities' needs directly. A little bit about funding, and I want to start with our federal, state, and county partnerships. So Extension began really in 1914 through federal laws, establishing our mission, our purpose, our connectivity to land-grant universities and with the College of Agriculture at that time. We received state funding and we received county funding together. And another point that I'll mention is you look at the pie chart, when you look at our expenditures for fiscal year 23, grants continues to be a major way that we bring revenue into the state. So a lot of these different dollars are additional funds outside of the state of Nevada that we're bringing into the state of Nevada within individual counties and cities and statewide to support the work that we're doing within Nevada. That's something that our faculty and staff are commissioned to do and are doing an excellent job of bringing in those types of dollars. From the county funding side, NRS 549 really dictates how that funding is done, what that relationship is with Extension in the county. As you can see, between 1 and 5 cents for every $100 of property tax is what is determined on how those dollars are really generated at that local level. And then we work in partnership, as we always do, with our county partners to talk about what is the work that needs to be done there and what is the budget that we can put together on an annual basis to best address that work. That budget is agreed on by the county, it's voted on by the county, and then it's filed with the state. And we work with them on a frequent basis as we review that plan of work on how are we doing, what are some new things that are coming forward, and how can we best address that collectively. In terms of how are those funds administered, it's done by reimbursement. And most of those counties, we do the work, and then on a quarterly basis, the counties reimburse Extension for the work that we're doing within that state. So there's not a lump sum of funds that come into one place. We work hand in hand with the county and are reimbursed as expenses occur over that annual year. So it really is a true partnership between county and Extension to realize those goals within the county. A few things I want to point out as well, and then go back and pivot a little bit to specific issues within the audit report that you have in front of you, is mentioning the reserve accounts and how those work. So the reserve accounts is something that we have with every county, and that's an agreement that we have with the county government, and they really serve two primary purposes. Is one, while we have an annual budget, and we have projections on what those budgets will look like in the years to come, the reserve fund, which is usually at least 20% of what the annual budget is, kind of serves as a stopgap. If there is shortage of funding, or if we don't quite meet the expectations, that reserve fund is there to be able to kind of fill in some of the gaps, to make sure that the plan of work can continue, that there is not an issue with staffing, and we can continue as expected. The other part is a lot of the work that we do in counties isn't just on an annual basis. It is multi-year. So some of it incurs planning that goes for 2, 3, or 4 more years. And so using the reserve fund to pull in to do multi-year investments in these major types of initiatives is a great way to support long-term partnership and sustainability of these programs. So a lot of times we'll use the annual budget, and then if the county we agree on programming, we'll use some of the investments in that reserve fund to make longer-term investments, which maybe we can't do on an annual basis based on the funds available. A few things to specifically mention then in the audit in the first part, and I believe this is on page 2, it talks about Clark County's reserve fund. And when this audit was originally done in 2016, 2017, looking at what that amount was, and a plan was put in place at that time by Extension to increase the investments that were being made in Clark County. And being able to bring that fund balance down into a little bit of a lower level. So a plan was put in place at that time. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and so there were some challenges being able to expend the funds as that plan had occurred. And then in the audit report that you see in front of you, it noticed that the reserve fund over that time period actually increased a little bit instead of being decreased. So what I want to be able to say, and what was illustrated here, but want to also be able to elaborate and answer questions on, is what we've done is that in the last fiscal year is be able to increase those investments again, but also reduce that fund balance by about $1.7 million by a number of major investments that we've done that align with our mission. And then also have a plan over the next 2 fiscal years to continue those investments and invest an additional $7.3 million within Clark County using those funds. So we are very excited and working with partnership with the counties, as you heard from Commissioner Kirkpatrick earlier, on all of those different initiatives to support the work within Clark County. A few other points that I will bring forward that was in the audit specifically. Expenditures were mentioned, cash controls, and the recharge. A number of those, as you see within the writing in the audit's report, was just certain details that were missing from some of the receipts. And so some of the training was done to make sure that that information is actually presented and make it more clear in the future. So those were all done and fully implemented. In the county reporting, there were some counties that weren't using the same template. If you look on the county web pages, there are a summary every year in terms of the financial report and program summary that is done within that county. And so we needed to make sure that all the counties were using the same type of report, including having some address labels that were there. So that has also been addressed. And then on the last section in page 14 and 15, there was some ledger providing some revenues and expenditures. And I wanted to pull out one element in particular, and that was the balance of June 30th of 2020 was listed at $8.2 million. The balance of July 1st, 2021, so a year before, was $7.3 million. So that went up about $900,000. The reason why is, again, back to those county funds, because this was 2021. And so in that year, not all of the funds were expended at the county level, which left about a $900,000 increase on a year-to-year comparison. But again, those dollars are being invested and have been used in a multi-year purpose for Clark County to strengthen the work that we're doing there. And again, really happy with the results of the audit and the conclusion that Extension's operating in a satisfactory manner without deficiencies. But I wanted to bring those things forward and happy to address any questions that you may have. A few things as I summarize this and then open to questions. Wanted to, again, just kind of focus on some of our partnerships and how we work across the state. at the federal level, at the regional level, and then across the state, of bringing privates, nonprofits, and educational institutes to bear so that we work in partnership to bring all of those resources. That's how we work. We work in partnership. We work in collaboration. Sometimes it's about us bringing maybe the expertise to the table. A lot of times it's bringing individuals and resources to the table that have that expertise so that we can tackle it together. And that's the benefit of having kind of a national network of cooperative extension. I shared this earlier with the Board of Regents, but I thought it was helpful to bring it up again. When we talk about partnerships specifically with NSHE, Extension currently has over 70 unique partnerships with NSHE institutes across the state, and 50 of them are with UNLV. So we're grateful for all the partnerships that we have and continue to work collaboratively to address local and statewide issues. As I have a summary here, just a few things that I want to highlight on what are some major things that have come to our attention and have been asked to really kind of work on. And I'm happy to elaborate more on these questions asked, but food insecurity and access, a major issue. And we have food production, but we need to enhance it. But it's also about food pathways and how do we bring fresh, nutritious food into individuals, including in urban environments. And so controlled ag, vertical agriculture, and food systems, particularly within Las Vegas, but also throughout the state, are a high priority and something that we are working on and continue to make investments in. K through 12, mental health, youth development, this is also in the 4-H space. We have a lot of work with the Clark County School District and in the Washoe County School District, and excited to continue to move that forward. Water and climate work obviously is important, business development, and then workforce development. And there's a lot of great programs I'd be excited to share when more time allows. So that is my presentation. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Decker. We're going to start off with questions from the committee. Are there any questions from the Audit and Compliance Committee? Please, Regent Del Carlo.
Thank you, Chair Squad, and thank you for your presentation. I'm a big supporter of 4-H and cooperative extension. I took classes when I was a kid. I went to the 4-H camp between 6th and 7th grade at Lake Tahoe. Fabulous. I've told this board before that my niece was the Miss Ohio, and when she went to do her, they do a shoe thing, but her county in Ohio where 4-H was started back in the early 1900s, she did her whole thing around 4-H. Her skirt had the clover leaves all around it, so it was pretty neat. So it's a wonderful program, and I'm just asking if most states, I know there's 51 states, is it a statewide effort for most states? I mean, they don't have multiple different cooperative extensions offices. Is it normally just a state office?
It's a state system. Yes.
State system.
And so usually there's a state 4-H office within the state extension system that operates 4-H within all the counties and territories within the state. Yep.
Okay, so because I know there's been talk in Nevada of, breaking it up or something, which I'm not in favor of at all, just so you know, because I think we're stronger together and the roots are very deep in our state. And as long as you continue to meet the needs of your customers, there's no problem. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a couple questions for you, Dr. DeDecker. Out of the 17 counties in the state of Nevada, how many of those counties do you have not just a physical presence, but an office presence?
The only county that we do not have a physical presence in is Esmeralda County, and that's because of the tax base that there isn't support an office on itself. However, we do make sure that we can support those residents, and particularly the young people out of Esmeralda County. And so we have 4-H clubs that are in Esmeralda County that are supported out of Northern Nye office in Tonopah. And so there are resources and supports to Esmeralda, even though we don't have a physical location there.
Out of the 350 staff members, where are the majority of them located? Or do you have them dispersed throughout the state of Nevada equally?
They're definitely dispersed throughout the state because we want to make sure that we have coverage everywhere serving the entire state. But because of the size of Clark County, we have over 155 faculty and staff that are located within Clark County. And out of our 35 locations that we have, 12 of them are located within Clark County.
Excellent. And then one question regarding the audit report itself. On page 9, item number 6. In regards to the expense reports for employee reimbursement, in the future, have you all developed a plan or a method to circumvent this issue in the future? Just in regards to expense report from employees when they travel.
Yes, and we do have travel certainly is something that's important to us. Being the state of Nevada, we have a lot of geography to cover, and we want to make sure that we're present within those communities. And so travel is certainly something that's a regular part of what we do. And in this particular case, it was just more detailed information. And so we provided a better template, I think, that can illustrate on how some of those decisions are made and how it's communicated in the materials themselves. And so it's clear on what's transpiring there. And if questions need to arise, the financial team reviews that and has those conversations.
Excellent. Thank you. Although the committee does no longer have.
Chair, oh, go ahead, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Regent Berger. I see you. Go right ahead.
Okay, I just did have one quick question. Doesn't need to be answered today. Can we find out how many students? I know in Sandy Valley, they had a good 4-H system, and our rurals here in Clark County seem to do it more than in town. And like Carol, I grew up here and I did participate in 4-H club. There wasn't a lot for us. I won't say how long ago, but when we grew up here, we mainly played in the desert, quite frankly. How many students participate in 4-H programs across the state? And if I could get that, or the whole board get that information at some point in time over the next few weeks, that would be something I'd like to know.
I'd be happy to provide that information. We can actually provide it by county, and then also break it down to 4-H clubs and then versus in-school and after-school programming as well that just talks about our delivery method. So I'm happy to provide that information.
Okay, not if it's a lot of work, but I just was curious. My children all went through school here, and I have grandchildren. I've never, ever heard of it other than in Sandy Valley. So that's my interest because it's an amazing program. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Dr. DeDecker, we're going to have a question outside of the committee. Regent Perkins, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and I'm also a fan of Extension. Was born and raised in Las Vegas, and I did a project through the 4-H Club. So even as an urban student, I did participate. And I just wanted to sing kudos. Extension has been very responsive to the needs of each individual county, which is extremely important in Nevada because we have rural, frontier, and urban. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and I just wanted to say thank you for that responsiveness to each individual county.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you, Regent Perkins. Any other questions from the committee and or outside regions? None seen, none stated. Regent, Dr. DeDecker, thank you for the presentation and for follow-up, and we will look forward to the next audit of cooperative extension. Well done, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to agenda item number 5, which is the sports special course and differential programs fees for TMCC.
Excuse me,
And
Mr. Chair.
I just saw exactly what you're going to say. Thank you very much, General Counsel Parker. For item number 4, there was a possible action. Is there an approval on the dais to accept the institutional follow-up responses by UNR Cooperative Extension for the audit for period July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022? Is there a motion anywhere?
Motion by Susan Brager to accept.
Thank you, Regent Brager.
Second by Regent Del Carlo.
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None heard, none stated. Thank you very much. Deputy General Counsel Parker, thank you for the follow-up. Let's move on to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5, this is also for possible action, which is a special course and differential program fees at TMCC. Interim Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp will present for approval report and institutional responses. Ms. Tripp, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Arascata. For the record, Lauren Tripp, Interim Chief Internal Auditor. So in the audit summary document, there is a table of audit reports that are being presented today. This includes updates on the follow-up audit that was approved during item number 2. And then we got a bonus presentation for the follow-up audit for agenda item number 4. So thank you for Dr. DeDecker for making my life pretty easy on that one. As usual, I want to say thank you to all the institutions and offices with reports being presented and discussed today. So leading into item number 5, this is the TMCC Special Course and Differential Program Fees Audit. To provide some background information on this item, we've performed similar audits in the past. I was actually on one back in 2013. Considering the recommendations from the LCB audit, we figured it was time to cycle through some fees audits again, understanding that fees are always a hot topic. For these types of audits, it involves a reconciliation between a few different pieces. So you have the fees that are $50 or less, that are approved on the institutional level. There's usually a process out at that institution for those approvals. Then you have the ones that are greater than 50 that go to the board for approval. Those will be in the P&G and handbook. And then we also review what is in the student information system. So you have those documents that show those approvals, but what was approved, was that actually input into the student information system and is accurately being charged to the students? And likewise, is there fees in the system that there's no documents to show that they should be in the system? So it's kind of a reconciliation between a bunch of parts right there. For these types of audits, we also review expenditures on if they are extraordinary and not being used for regular operational expenses. So are these fees being charged for that extra item? In Title IV, Chapter 17, Section 27, Special Course Fees, it is the policy of the Board of Regents that the registration fee be the only fee assessed for taking a course except as otherwise outlined in this section. The reasons for these exceptions are extraordinary instruction costs. So this could be like private music lessons, class supplies, welding equipment, material. So it's something that's extraordinary. We also review if there's an accumulation of funds in the accounts. So those funds that are, they're supposed to benefit the students paying that fee for that term, right? So Title IV, Chapter 10, Section 19, except as otherwise provided in subsection 2, all fees, including but not limited to student fees, special course fees, differential program fees. It lists some other fees that remain unexpended or dedicated as of June 30th of the fiscal year in which they are collected may be carried forward for up to one fiscal year. So we don't want to see the funds are just accumulating year after year, because that might indicate that the fee might not be necessary, right? Or maybe the fee is no longer being charged, but we see that the funds are still remaining in those accounts. This is the first audit, this round of special course and differential program fees that we're going to be doing. You'll see later in item number 8 that we do have another institution listed to have a similar audit. So now back specifically, that was some background, so back specifically to TMCC for this special course and differential program fees audit. The findings are what we typically see noted during these types of audits. This resulted in recommendations in the following areas: that a review be performed periodically to review courses assessing additional fees and the ending balances to ensure fees are for extraordinary costs and they're not accumulating, and strengthening controls related to special course fee expenditures. Thank you.
Very condensed and very thorough. Thank you very much, Ms. Tripp. That was well done. Questions from the committee? None heard. I do have a couple questions, though, and a couple kudos. The institutional responses on each and every one of the items is extremely well done. I want to give strong recognition to President Hogerson and her team at TMCC. However, I do have a couple questions. In regards to the page number 4, on the institutional response for 2022, the Vice President of Academic Affairs, there was a creation of a special course fee balance report, which has been used for the 2 years to track the the starting and ending balances, and also the revenues and the spending. Was there a little bit more follow-up on that one? Because the creation of special course fees balance report and we have not received that balance report. Or if there could be follow-up from TMCC regarding that particular issue, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
I can't see him.
I cannot see anybody.
Oh, Regent Eriscata?
Oh, President Hilgerson, I
Thank
hear
you.
your
Sorry,
voice.
I can't see you either.
I-
Yeah, so President Karen Hilgerson for the record. We can certainly provide additional follow-up. I would also invite Vice President of Finance and Government Relations, Mike Pearl, if he has anything further to add.
Thank you, President Hilgerson. Mr. Pearl, come on up.
Good morning, Chair. Vice President Mike Pearl, TMCC for the record. Absolutely, when it comes to page 4, so what we noticed is that we had to have an internal tracking mechanism and an internal ability to look at each one of those special course fees with the Vice President of Academic Affairs as well as all of the deans each year to determine if that course fee is in fact meeting the standard. So we can provide those documents to you. It's not an issue. And that was not part of this audit, but it is something that we implemented in response to this audit.
Are those course fees, do you have them individualized per course?
Yes.
Per class? You do?
Per
have them?
class, and we assess each one of those. And in addition to that, the secondary control measure that we implemented last year is I meet with the deans each semester, and we review each one of their accounts, and we pay special attention to those fee accounts and their balances and develop strategies for spending down.
Wonderful. I look forward to those reports.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? Regent DeCarlo.
Thank you, Chair Eriscata. I just think it's really important that we, for all institutions, that we really keep an eye on the differential fees. When I first came on the board, we had a school that had just an enormous amount of student fees that weren't being spent, and we did pass some policies, and it's much better. But I just think it's really important that I know I'm not sure how often this gets audited. I mean, it's been a while. I just think it's really important because I know our board's very conscious of student fees. We hate raising student fees. Certainly we have to keep up with cost of living, but I just think it's really incumbent on our institutions to really keep an eye on those student fees, because most of the time when we are raising fees, things are going up. It's very rarely do they go down, and it's a point of pride when the board can reduce anything. So I would just, when the deans get together, I would just ask all of you just to really chisel down and make sure those pennies and dollars are really needed. And, if you need them, you need them. But if you don't and they're just languishing, give them back or do something with them. So yeah, I just think it's really important that we're really cognizant of where the money goes that our students are paying, because it's hard for a lot of kids to go to school. A lot of them. We all know that. Thank you.
And you bring up a really good point, Regent DeCarlo. And I'm going to forward this over to our interim chief internal auditor, Lauren Tripp. How often does audit compliance, how often are special course and differential program fees assessed throughout the system?
So Lauren Tripp, interim chief internal auditor. So the last time we did these specific ones for special course and differential fees, it was around 2013. Probably ran into 2015 because we cycled through each institution. But I do think that, which is also why we're doing it right now, because it's been a while, plus the LCB audit recommendations. I also think it wouldn't hurt to look at also other fees, not just those fees. So it's on my radar.
Business. Thank you very much.
Chair Scott.
Yes, Regent Boylan.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I thought I was the only one who usually had some crazy, great ideas, but I like what Regent Del Carlo just said, give back some money to the students. Wow, that is awesome. Now, if that was possible, interim director Ms. Tripp or anybody else, if that was possible, how could that be done?
May I jump in here if I could? Regent
Please
Boyle,
do,
I
Chair.
really like the proactive approach that you're seeing this entire project in regards to if there was additional finances left over to return or reimburse to the students. However, this audit has not been addressed since 2013, correct? So why don't we go ahead and follow up and perhaps in new business, as I looked over to my right at Regent Del Carlo, about setting a stronger agenda items for the future to complete audit and special course and fee differential program audits. And then we can go down the road to see what we have and what we don't have, because this has not been done in 11 years. So let's focus on the future rather than something that's pertained in the past.
Outstanding, Chair. But my question really was, if it ever happened anywhere else, or how would it happen? I'm not saying right now how much is it and how much should we give back, but it's a great idea for new business. But how would that happen? Is it a possibility at all?
That is something beyond my recognition. Hold on one second.
Okay.
So I'm going to forward this question over to CFO Chris Vitton, who is, I believe, directly behind me. Thank you, CFO Vitton.
Hi, good morning, Chris Vitton, NSHE CFO. I wanted to offer the audit of the fees is actually, I think, also looking at the process for approval of the fees and establishing them and properly billing them according to the approvals. In addition to these audits, you do have, as part of your annual reporting cycle in December, you receive a summary of fee balances by campus. And I think that's a good opportunity to hear from campuses and be able to see the balances. And I think we anticipate expanding some of the reporting there. We have expanded it in the past couple of years to break it out into different categories, so you're more clearly seeing capital and general improvement in addition to the special course fee categories. So I just wanted to offer perhaps that's an opportunity to look at the fee balances more specifically. Answering the question of can fees be refunded or could fees be refunded, certainly the student systems understand track who's actually paid for what fees. So should there ever be that type of circumstance, that could be done. But I think more commonly, or what your policy contemplates, is the campus reporting on the balances, having plans for use of the balances, and then eliminating fees when they're determined, or reducing if it's determined that they're collecting in excess, rather than looking at refunding. I don't think we've had circumstances where we've had balances that would need to be refunded at this point, but just wanted to offer that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Vitton. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Regent Bullitt. And as Mr. Vitton just threw me an underhand pitch, was a perfect segue. We're going to go to my left, outside of my peripheral vision, is to President Hilgerson, I believe. President Hilgerson?
Thank you so much, Regent Ariscada. Karen Hilgersum, for the record. I just want to clarify the way we operate at TMCC, and that is that we review fees annually, sometimes biannually. So this is really an important element of the job of the administrative leadership team, and we take it very seriously. And I believe that at a recent meeting, it may have been June or March, it all kind of runs together, but we removed a multitude of fees that we realized doing sort of our own internal auditing procedure that happens quite regularly, that there were fee accounts that the fees were not being expended as fast as they could have been expended. So we put them on the list, we removed them. Those students are no longer charging those fees. We really do take this very seriously. But I also need to add that some of the fees that we do collect are collected for things like, gee, we need to maintain our microscopes and we might need to buy some new microscopes in a year from now. So we need to save up for that because that's a very high ticketed item, as just one example. We also have vendor contracts related to some of the equipment and consumables that students use, and we need to make sure that we can afford to pay those vendors what we owe them. So it is a complicated discussion, but I just wanted to clarify that I suspect all of the institutions have internal procedures and strategies so that we are good stewards of student fees, because much like the Board of Regents, we do not want to charge students for things that they are not getting. It's not ethical, it's not right, and we really try to do our best to avoid that and have a responsible plan for how we expend those student fees. Thank you.
Thank you, President Holgerson. Were there any other comments from any of the presidents? Nope. We're going to focus on TMCC. Thank you very much, President Holgerson. So for agenda item number 5, the special course and differential program fees, which was presented by our interim chief internal auditor, asking or providing an option or an opportunity for approval of the report of and institutional responses to the TMCC special course and differential program fees audit for the period of July 1st, 2022 to September 30th of 2023. Is there a motion on the table?
Motion to accept, Susan Brager.
Thank you.
I'll
Second.
second. Oh, Raylan got it.
Regent Boylan, you jumped in there on time. We're going to do
Yes, sir.
first by Regent Brager, second by Regent Boylan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
I too am in favor. Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 6 is the Title IX update. We received copious amounts of Title IX in regards to our last meeting. And it was thorough, it was in depth, and it was a lot, to say the least. Following conversations with our interim chief internal auditor, Tripp, we agreed that an additional Title IX update by Senior Associate General Counsel Linda King would be beneficial for not just this committee, but for the entire system. So, Ms. King, I see you at the podium. Please continue.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Linda King, Senior Associate General Counsel for NSHE. This item is an information-only item and was agendized for general remarks. This agenda item was submitted prior to the presentation of the new Title IX regulations at the August 23rd meeting. So as Chair Escada has mentioned, there have been some questions and some ideas that have come up since that presentation, specifically a request for a side-by-side comparison of the 2020 rule with the 2024 rule. Unfortunately, it is a lot of information, as the chair has noted, and we were unable to put together supplemental information that could have been added to this agenda for this meeting. And in talking with the Title IX coordinators group, we also realized that 15 minutes will not be long enough to do that presentation. So for your December committee meeting, we will have the item presented, a side-by-side comparison, so that you can see those changes. But just to give you some context, the 2020 rule was 2,000 pages, the regulation, and then that is with all the comments and all the explanations, and the 24 rule is 1,500 pages. So while we have looked to see if there are vendors and other organizations out there who have put together comparisons, all of those are in excess of 50 pages, and we did not feel were adequate to present today in the time that was allotted. But by way of general remarks, I can tell you that there's nothing new in the national landscape with respect to the injunctions. Everything remains in place as it was on August 23rd. The Title IX coordinators are still meeting weekly. We're discussing everything from reviewing the policy, and now that it is being implemented on at some of the institutions, we're talking about kind of the questions that come up once you've revised a policy and you're actually implementing it. So various campuses have had some questions. We're looking at whether or not there's a need for any refinement to the policy, and then the legal teams are just giving interpretation of what those revisions, when questions come up on the revisions. What else can I tell you by way of general remarks? That's about it for general remarks. However, we have Title IX coordinators available today from both our large and small institutions. We've got people here, we've got people in Reno, and as well in Las Vegas. If there are any general questions that the committee has, or if you would like anyone to walk through in very general, overarching terms of what their complaint process looks like from intake and through an investigation.
Thank you. Rather than speaking to each campus or each institute regarding that last item that you just mentioned, can you, just in an overarching method, describe the complaint process from start to finish? I know that sounds like a ridiculous amount of work, but if you can do it in just a couple minutes, from the first complaint, who it goes to the bottom, if there's a mediation, if there is agreement, but if you can describe that process, we'd appreciate it.
And thank you, Chair. I can describe that process, but I would prefer to defer to a Title IX coordinator, as those are the individuals that are charged with implementing that process.
Wise answer for an attorney. Let's start from which Title IX coordinators are on the line, if you could.
You've got Michelle Sposito from UNLV in Las Vegas, Ziva Edmondson from UNR in Reno. You've got College of Southern Nevada, Armin Ashirian in Las Vegas, and you have Melody Dooley here from WNC.
Out of respect for those who are present, we're going to start with the Western Nevada, or was it Western Nevada Title IX?
Correct.
Please. And this is just a pretty brief overarching from the initial complaint to the entire process, from the complaint to the entire. Please go right ahead.
Okay, for the record, Melody Dooley, D as in dog, U-L-E-Y. I'm the Chief HR Officer, Chief of Staff, and Title IX Coordinator at Western Nevada College. When a complainant first comes to us, one of their first decisions is whether to make an informal or a formal complaint. If they do make a formal complaint, then the matter may proceed to an investigation, depending upon if it falls under the Title IX jurisdiction or one of our non-Title IX processes to address the complaint. Of course, in the investigation, the parties are interviewed, witnesses may be interviewed. The investigator does a credibility analysis, weighs the evidence with a preponderance of evidence standard, and writes a report of its findings. From that point, it could proceed to a hearing if misconduct is found. At any point in the process, though, if both parties are amenable to informal resolution, it could take that pathway, which I think is probably what you're referring to as mediation, in which case the matter may not proceed to a hearing or a sanction. If one or more parties are not interested in informal resolution, then it would still proceed down the formal process. And then depending upon the findings and an outcome of a hearing, a sanction may be imposed.
Succinct yet thorough. Thank you very much. For any other of the Title IX coordinators that are present at the meeting here at Western Nevada campus, please come on up. None of the chairs. However, I do see some online. If we can go to the UNLV Title IX coordinator, please continue.
There, we got it. Good morning, Michelle Sposito. I am the Director of the Office of Equal Employment and Title IX and the Title IX Coordinator at UNLV. Melody did a thorough job explaining the process. We follow a similar process at UNLV. So if there's any additional questions about the complaint process, happy to answer those.
Thank you very much. I 100% concur. Melody did an outstanding job and brought it down and gave a great description of from beginning to end. It was extremely thorough. So that was at UNLV. How about at the College of Southern Nevada? None seen, none stated. And at Great, that was,
Yeah, you do have, Chair, excuse me, Linda King for the
please,
record.
who else?
You do have Great Basin and Nevada State's
Thank
Title
you.
IX coordinator also available, Patricia Anderson.
Let's go to the Northeast, Great Basin College, please.
Good morning, Regents. Patricia Anderson, for the record, Anderson. I am the Title IX investigator for both Great Basin College and Nevada State University at this point in time. But what Melody said is basically the same function. We are going to get a complaint. We are going to determine some sort of validity based on the regulations as that it fits into one of the categories of a Title IX complaint and a Title IX violation. Normally, when I first receive a complaint, I will have an informal meeting with the person just to verify their statement and their concerns and their wishful outcome of a situation. And then if there is enough evidence or enough information, then it will go to an investigation, which will be handled. We'll interview any witnesses. We'll interview both sides of the story, complainant and respondent. The report will be written, and then both the respondent and the complainant have time to review that and reply and rebuttal in writing. And all of that then goes to the hearing officer if a hearing is justified. There is the option, as Melody stated, of doing an informal resolution, and quite frankly, we tend to go that way a fair amount of time, just because neither the complainant or the respondent want to go through the hearing process, and they're willing to accept an informal resolution, especially if it might be involving an employee. But other than that, what she said is basically how we all do this.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Regent Boylan, I believe I just heard you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Just a quick question. Is the first complaint or the first contact, is that online, by phone, or in person? If it's either one of those, do we have one actually online is my question, because never having done one, I don't know how this works, and I'd like to know that students and employees, staff, everybody has an idea. Is it on online, ma'am?
General Counsel.
Or Miss Linda? Who?
Linda King for the record. It could be any of the above, depending on the institution. Some have an online link that's available to submit their complaint, or a form that can be filled out at the offices. There's also email addresses. Again, I'll defer. I see that we do have Ms. Edmondson at UNR. Maybe she hasn't spoken yet on her complaint process. Perhaps she could take this one as well.
Ms. Edmondson, please continue.
Hi, good morning. Ziva Edmondson, ZEVA-EDMONDSON. I'm the Director of the Center for Civil Rights and Equal Access and Title IX Coordinator for the University of Nevada. And thank you for the opportunity this morning, and hopefully I can streamline this for you. I do want to say, as you know, the Title IX coordinators, all of us have been meeting twice a week since April when the final rule came out. I've been a Title IX coordinator in several other states, and I've never seen such an incredible collaborative effort. And I'm very, very proud of our team and the Title IX coordinators in Nevada, and for the legal counsel that has also guided us. So with that said, our process at the University of Nevada, most of it is online. We have a link in several places on the website where people can send in an automated report to us. With that, they get that standard computer response saying, hey, it's been received. But what we've done is we've streamlined our protocol to be more responsive. So folks will get a response from a person in our office after they submit that within 72 hours. And I say 72 because it's usually 48, but if there's a holiday or something, sometimes it can be a little longer. But most likely it's within 48 hours. A staff member will reach out to the individual, ask them to come in. We have a intake office, a space that's designed for folks to be comfortable and private, and then they can tell us what their concerns are. Our intake officer will also let them know what the process to expect. offer any kind of supportive measures or accommodations, let people know that those are there for them as well. So once that occurs, then there's an intake team that meets twice a week in our office, and that includes our intake officer, myself, and our data analyst. And we go over all complaints that have come in. And like I said, it's twice a week. We want to make sure we're addressing all the concerns. From there, then we get updates from any intakes that have been that have occurred, and then I make the decision, should someone want to move forward, if it's our jurisdiction, and we assess it, to assign it to an investigator. We do have walk-ins, and we have a protocol for that, but they are less likely. Most people do want to report or use the online process. Occasionally, yes, we might get a phone call or we get an email, but we make sure that it's routed. All complaints go to not only our intake officer, they go to me, they go to our admin assistant and our data analyst. So we make sure in case somebody's off, somebody's getting that information and responding. So we have those protocols in place. We've also put in place a survey for our intake procedure, that we have folks have the opportunity to leave an anonymous survey on the process and how it's working. So we get an idea if there's something we can do better. We get that information now as well. So I'm constantly doing a gap analysis for our institution to look for barriers in reporting. We're now also putting information in Spanish because we do have some folks that English is not their first language and they may be more comfortable in that. So we're doing everything we can in the complaint process. As far as the procedure, everyone has already pretty much hit it. Once the investigation begins, if folks want an investigation, that's completed, and depending on if it's going to be Title IX or non-Title IX, the routing will go to the right adjudicating authorities.
Thank you, Ms.
Chair
Edmondson.
Scott.
Thank you, Ms. Edmondson. Yes, Regent Boylan.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Just a suggestion or an idea. Since we are one system, Nevada system of higher education, wouldn't it make more sense and make it easier for everybody if the whole system had the same process? Because it seems to me that some institutes do it differently. Overall, it may be the same result. But could we not have the same thing in each institute, or does it have to be different? And that maybe it goes to Ms. King, since she is in charge of this, I guess, the head of this. So is it possible for us to have an institute? Because I've seen in quite a few things, we have one institute, but we have different ways of doing different things in different institutes.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. Ms. King?
Linda King for the record.
Thank you, sir.
We could certainly have the Title IX coordinators group discuss consistent processes for ways to submit a complaint so that all available options of submitting a complaint are available at each institution. But what we couldn't do is have a centralized NSHE intake. Because each institution has its own Title IX coordinator. So we would not be able to have a centralized NSHE receptacle for all of the complaints, but we can certainly discuss among the Title IX coordinators group, ensuring that all students at each institution have the same opportunities and available methods to submit a complaint.
Thank you, ma'am. I was not suggesting we bring it all to one central place, like I usually do say, so to save money and such. But this one, I understand. No, that's really good. Thank you. I'd appreciate it if we had some sort of institute-wide similarity, and no one's confused if they go to another institute. Very simple. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't want to
Thank you,
leave
Chair.
out UNLV with all the collaboration in which you all have done. Is the Title IX coordinator from University of Nevada, Las Vegas online?
Chair, you've already spoken with Ms. Sposito from UNLV.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. I was just mentioning it to our chief of staff. I need a little bit more coffee this morning. So thank you very much. I know this was for possible action. Are there any questions? Additional items? Excuse me, this is information only. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. King, thank you very much for your presentation. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for letting me take that big, deep breath there. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 7, which is going to be the risk assessment process for the Department fiscal year 2025 highlights. And this is for information only. This is going to be presented by Interim Chief and Total Auditor Linda Tripp to provide some general remarks regarding the alignment and prioritization of risk factors during the risk assessment process. Ms. Tripp, please continue.
Thank you, Chair Arascata. Lauren Tripp,
I will after this.
Interim Chief Internal Auditor. So for this item, I'll be giving a bit more background on what is internal audit, what services do we provide, and some more detail about how we go about our risk assessment process. So starting off with what is internal audit, the purpose of the Internal Audit Department is to strengthen the Nevada system of higher education's ability to create, protect, and sustain value by providing the Board of Regents and management with independent, risk-based, and objective assurance, advice, insight, and foresight. So we do this by providing independent assurance and advisory services to the Board of Regents and management on the adequacy and effectiveness of governance, risk management, and control processes. So this might sound really familiar, and it's because that is from our charter. So I'm going to go a little bit more into what does that all mean. So internal auditing gains insights into an organization's culture, policies, and procedures, and it contributes to the oversight of the board and management. So this contribution provides objective insight, improves efficiency of operations, evaluate risks and help protect assets, assesses organizational controls, and ensures compliance with policies and procedures. So our main purpose, what we aim to do, is add value and improve organizational operations. We want to help those departments or those groups within NSHE to achieve their goals. One of the questions I get asked sometimes is like, what is the difference between external auditors and internal auditors? So we're more invested in wanting the organization to succeed. And that's not saying that the external auditors don't want us to succeed. It's just they have a very specific, if you think back to the external audit, the contract, they have a specific plan, the things they need to do, right? Whereas for internal audit, we need to look at a wider span of issues, create an unbiased opinion, collaborate for solutions, and we look at the past, today, and the future. So what kind of services do we provide, and what are assurance and advisory services? So assurance services are services through which internal auditors perform objective assessments to provide assurance. So some of examples are compliance, financial, operational performance, technology engagements. Internal auditors may provide limited or reasonable assurance depending on the nature, timing, and extent of procedures. So think of these more like the traditional audits, the items that will be on work plan, the work plan in number 8, those audits that are listed for each institution. Assurance services involve the internal auditor's objective assessment of evidence to provide an opinion or conclusion regarding an operation, entity, function, process, system, or other subject matters. The nature and the scope of an assurance engagement, they're determined by the internal auditor. As opposed to advisory services, those are services through which internal auditors provide advice to an organization's stakeholders without providing assurance or taking on management responsibilities. The nature and scope of these are subject to agreement between the relevant stakeholders, and examples could be advising on the design and implementation of new policies, processes, systems, and products, providing forensic services, providing training, facilitating discussions about risks and controls. So these were also known as consulting services. These are generally performed at the specific request of an institution. The nature and scope of these kinds of advisory consulting engagements, it worked out between whoever's requesting it and internal auditors. The one thing we have to do, though, is we have to maintain objectivity, because we can't perform any management responsibility because it would conflict us out, basically, since we're auditing ourselves, which we can't do. Some other areas worth noting that we are involved in, some IT responsibilities with coordinating with institutions, PCI compliance, involved in workday audit groups. We also provide assistance to the external auditors for student financial aid. And then the incident management system, which I use hotline interchangeably just because it's shorter, but cases are assessed timely, discreetly, in an appropriate manner. We determine the nature of the report, next steps, which could include an investigation or forwarding to a subject matter expert. So this next part, this is going to tie in with item number 8 a bit, but how do we come up with what we plan to audit? We have limited resources. So where are the areas with the greatest risk? Where is the best use of our time? You never want to spend time auditing an area that there's no risk, it's not relevant, or it doesn't benefit anybody, right? We have a risk assessment matrix, and this lists all the areas on campus. So this is called our audit universe, essentially, and they are assessed a risk level. So we can't audit every area, and for every audit even, we can't look at everything. So for some audits, areas may be considered low risk and they wouldn't be worth reviewing. When building our audits, we need to take this into consideration. So back to that risk assessment matrix that I just mentioned, this is used as part of our process to identify areas for potential audit. This, along with a combination of input from institutional stakeholders like the business officers, hotline submissions, and then also there's some audits that we're required to do, so those will make up the plan as well, such as change in leadership audits and host. For our risk assessment matrix, we have different categories that we rank from low to high. So these are financial risk, regulatory risk, operational risk, strategic importance, reputation risk, health safety risk, IT exposure, and judgment and fraud risk. And I know I just threw out a whole bunch of risk things, okay? But I promise it'll make sense here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an example, use financial aid because that's my default usually. And I will use that as an example as I walk through each of those risks and how we would rank them basically. So starting with financial risk. So this is one that's more quantifiable in nature and measures general business risk factors that could prevent or hinder achievement of organizational activities, as well as risk of material misstatement at the financial reporting level. So we use 3 areas to measure this: expenditures, revenues, and the number of employees. So for my example of financial aid, this one would usually rank high because of just the expenditures, the funding. This would usually be on the high end that we would rank it for the risk level. Regulatory risk, this would be the exposure of the audited area to established laws and regulations and the subsequent risk of noncompliance. So think IRS, HIPAA, OSHA, uniform guidance, NCAA, so regulations. This one I would also rank on the higher end because of the federal regulations required to, that we need to conform to for funding. For operational risk, this would be the risk of loss from the breakdown of internal processes, people, system, or from external events. So staffing plans, backup plans, efficiencies, major changes that could affect the control environment. This one I'd put more in the middle just because you'll lose people, but there's systems in place, so I don't consider it a total loss. So I'd probably rank that one somewhere in the middle. Strategic importance. The risk embedded in NSHE institutional strategy that could affect long-term positioning and performance, or the perceived importance to the campus. These are more initiatives or strategic plans that have been discussed at a high level, such as the board meetings. I would put that also mid to high, since financial is an important part of student success. Reputation risk. So this is the risk of loss resulting from an institution's character or quality that has been called into question. So negative press coverage, high profile areas such as athletics. I would also put that probably in the mid-range. Health and safety risk, the risk that a hazard or source of harm exists that could have an adverse effect on students, employees, or the general public. So these would be inadequate safety measures, dangerous conditions in science labs, or security facilities. This one I put low because financial aid, health safety risk, it doesn't really align. IT exposure, the risk associated with the use, ownership, operation, involvement, influence, and adoption of IT within an enterprise. So areas that have sensitive data, financial, student, employee, patient, PCI. This one I would put probably mid to a little bit over mid just because The data is obviously has a lot of personal information involved, but we have good procedures in place to mitigate that risk. So that's where I would land on that one. And then the last one would be judgment and fraud risk. So this is sort of the catch-all risk factor we use. This one's a bit harder without an actual example. So if we had a lot of findings in an audit, they were material, there's fraud, it's just not good, we would rank that one higher. But if it's just, the normal risks associated with financial aid, maybe there's a few findings, but there's some areas of weakness that you could work on, we would put that in probably the mid. So that one kind of varies. What we would then do after ranking all of those, we take those rank numbers for each category. There's a calculation involved. So that will leave you with a risk score for that area. And then those will be ranked against the other areas in that audit universe that I mentioned at the beginning. Usually what I'll see is there's certain ones that will always rise to the top, like sponsored projects, financial aid, athletics, just because the financial risk, regulatory risk brings them up. And that is a whole lot of risk assessment stuff. So that concludes my remarks for this item, but hopefully this will be a good lead-in for number 8 on how we develop that work plan. Thank you.
Very thorough. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the committee? I do have just a couple, and actually this is more of a compliment than anything. Beginning on page 29, in which you have a thorough breakdown of not only the exception and response analysis and the open exceptions per campus topic, but starting on the entire NSHE going down to from the top to the bottom and the bottom from the top is the Audit Compliance Title IX Committee. You provided us an opportunity to review each campus and the department, the top of the exception, and the management response. And I just wanted to give a strong compliment to the thoroughness of each campus of what you all provided in the presentation of it. So thank you. And are there any other questions or comments from the committee itself? Hearing none, let me go back down. This was for information only on agenda item number 7. Interim Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp, thank you very much for the provided remarks. Let's move over to item number 8, which is for possible action, and which we just mentioned, that Ms. Tripp just mentioned, is the audit department work plan and status report. Ms. Tripp, please.
Lauren Tripp, Interim Chief Internal Auditor. So over time, we have shifted from presenting the audit work plan from a yearly basis to a biannually basis. Oh my gosh. When we set the plan yearly, this didn't allow much flexibility, and as we know, priorities and risks can change quite rapidly. The approach is good for a few reasons. This better aligns ourselves with best practices from around the country, but also lets us be more agile and flexible in how we perform our work. This also gives the committee a much more realistic estimate and snapshot of what we plan to work on, the progress of current projects, plus the monitoring of items we've already worked on. So I'll direct the committee to pages 3 and 4. This describes a bit how the plan was put together. I also kind of mentioned that during number 7, and the measures we have taken to ensure there is agility and flexibility built into the plan. There often are important unforeseen projects that come up throughout the year where we need to have the ability to provide resources in a timely fashion. A huge part of what we do in our department is we strive to add value and provide services beyond that of just traditional assurance services. And one of those ways is assisting with these types of requests that come up. So I'll very briefly go over some highlights and themes. The work plan has time built into the budget for training. This is in order for us to stay relevant. Internal and external training must be included and should be expected. The more you know, well, the more you know, and you should continue to educate yourself and learn the necessary skills to better assist our clients, who in this case are the institutions. The first 3 continuing themes may look very familiar since they continue to remain points of importance. So responsiveness, as things come up, we need to think, is there a way we can increase our analysis in a certain area? And as we become aware of certain items, as policies tighten, this helps inform our audit plan. Where can we help that will make the biggest difference? We need to remain aware of hot topics that might be coming up with similar organizations and being aware of current events and what may be on the horizon. So collaboration with other groups remains crucial. This includes groups such as legal, HR, compliance, other auditors. We have to work together for the best results. The two items I just mentioned, responsiveness, collaboration, this leads a bit into that third hotline item. Our role continues to include facilitation of cases to proper subject matter experts. The submissions require us to respond in a timely manner. Then we have data analytics. More and more audit groups are utilizing data analytics in their work papers. Maybe it wouldn't be worth it to buy, obviously, the most expensive, latest and greatest, but data analytics can test an entire population, or it can help us select a better sample. So that's something that I think will be important. Resources, we continue to run lean, but the internal audit manager job posting is moving through the process, as Chair Scott had mentioned earlier. In the past, we would usually stick to the Reno team working on Reno projects, but I appreciate the team's willingness to help basically wherever they can. We're tiny but mighty. On page 5, this shows the work plan for the first half of fiscal year 25. This listing includes personnel hours, non-audit hours, and training hours. Once the utilizable hours are calculated, that number is taken and divided into planned audits, advisory requests, and other activities hotline. For the planned audits, these are the hours left that you're seeing on that page for the audit. So for instance, I'm not picking on UNR, but they're the best example. UNR differential program and special course fees, this audit hasn't been opened yet, so the budget remains at $300. Whereas the UNR Disability Resource Center is currently being worked on and closer to completion, so 50 hours remain. And that also leads a bit into page 6 and the completion chart. On page 7, you'll see some of the charts and graphs tracking our open findings at the institution. This graph on page 7 tracks the unresolved findings, where we now show the 5-year trends, and you'll see the direction, it's a slight decrease. I was hoping we could make a bigger dip down, but what I can say is most of the open items still relate to system administration due to those employee vacancies and key positions that we've had over the past few years. We've had discussions with the individuals providing the responses, and because the findings are related to policies, those do take a bit longer to complete. The good news is the responsible individuals are working hard on the items and have provided estimated dates of completion. Overall, this committee started to formally track and monitor the open exceptions, and it's made a difference. One of the more useful metrics from an internal audit perspective is how many open issues are there? How many past due issues do we have? Beyond general accountability, it's usually a strong indicator of management's buy-in with the findings and their willingness to accept our recommendations as we partner with them. So on that, that concludes my remarks for the work plan and status report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King, and this is for Ms. Tripp, and this is for possible action. Are there any questions, comments from the committee? Vice Chair Cruz Crawford, let's start with you.
Thank you, Chair Scott. Thank you, Lauren. Interim Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp. Thank you so much. I appreciate the thoroughness of the responses. I think auditing is very important, obviously, just enough to scare us to make sure we do the right thing, right? Checks and balances. On page 8, you have Nevada State College. If you can change that to NSHE, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Carlo.
Thank you, Chair Arascata. So to intern, oh, I can't even say it. Lauren, on page 4, you talk about your themes, and the hotline has come on the board since I've been on the board. I think it's a really great thing we do. And I'm just wondering, does the audit committee, because, we change people on the committees all the time. So does the audit committee get a yearly report?
Lauren Tripp, Interim Chief Internal Auditor. You are a mind reader because I was going to bring that up in number 9. But yeah, so usually the report was a little bit earlier, but because of us transitioning to the new vendor and us having to basically manually dump all the old files in there, my goal is to have a report to the Audit Compliance and Title IX Committee for December.
Okay, and then is that a December thing that is always December? Because if it's not, I was going to put it in new business, so I won't.
So we do have to bring a report yearly.
Okay.
But I can, once it's in place, we might be able to move it up to an earlier meeting.
Well, I personally don't care what meeting
Okay.
it's at. I know
Okay.
December is really chock full all the
I know,
time.
because of the external
So
auditors.
I would say maybe not December, but I would just say that we need it at least yearly, because I
Yes.
think it's really important that we have that hotline.
Yeah, so it's been presented yearly. It's just shifted to what meeting it's presented
Okay,
at.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And I think that's a really good point, Regent Del Carlo. Possibly one of the meetings rather than the December or the June one, maybe one of the other two, where we don't have it just completely chock full of work. But yeah, that's great. Maybe even twice a year, because that hotline is a really important item. Are there any other questions? Seeing none. So we're going to go for possible action on agenda item number 8, which is the approval for the internal audit report work plan for the 6-month period ending December 31st, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Regent DeCarlo. Do I hear a second?
Chair, I'll second.
Thank you, Regent Cruz Crawford. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We're going to transition over to number 9, which is an information only for the internal audit compliance and Title IX updates. Although we've been receiving great information from all the Title IX workforce group, but we're going to have a little bit more that's going to be provided by our interim chief internal auditor, Lauren Tripp, to provide some general remarks regarding the departmental updates, initiatives, and alignment related to ongoing risk assessments, including incident management processes and the metrics. Ms. Tripp?
Lauren Tripp, Interim Chief Internal Auditor. So this section is a standing item to be able to provide some departmental updates, just have a placeholder for some additional discussion. In the past, this has been used as a platform to update the committee on financial aid related findings, discuss our risk assessment methodologies, and updates for other board-related initiatives. So it's just a couple things. So as Regent Del Carlo mentioned, I was going to talk about the incident management system. So last meeting, I had discussed that we were transitioning to a new vendor. So we have that new vendor. It's Clearview Connect. It's on our website. You can submit reports there. We have both. You could do it online, or there is a phone number. We have already received submissions and individuals have been utilizing it. It's relatively new, so we're still working out how to do certain things, isolate reports. This system, unlike the prior system, is capable of filtering and creating graphs in the system. So the next steps will be to basically put all of those reports from the old system and that interim email that we had, put them into the system so they'll all be in one place. That's on my to-do list for the next month. Also, we're saving some money on that vendor, so I'm excited about that too. External auditors, as some of you may or may not know, I typically have been the one to assist the external auditors with student financial aid testing. I assisted them with our 2T4 testing back in July, so my piece should be done. My understanding is the SFA portion is now going through the review process. They're still working through other areas for the audit, financial statements, CFA. There's a lot of pieces, obviously, to our audit because it's very complex. Plus, new external auditors means different requests, but it's moving along. And I already mentioned it briefly earlier, along with Chair Arskada, but we're moving through the process of reviewing applicants for the internal audit manager position in Reno. Also, our IT audit manager took a position over at SCS, taking on the role as an information security data privacy officer. So that will be another position we'll need to recruit. I'm sad that he's no longer within our department, but obviously SCS saw that he was amazing and picked him up. But I am glad that he hasn't gone far, because I still phone a friend with him quite often. So with that, thank you, and I appreciate the committee's time.
Thank you, Ms. Tripp. That was very thorough. I appreciate it. Oh, Regent Cruz Crawford.
Thank you, Chair Scott. This is to Interim Chief Internal Auditor Lauren Tripp. What kind of outreach is being done so that people do know that they can file a report with Clearview?
Lauren Tripp, Interim Chief Internal Auditor. So we're not meant to be the only resource. We're just kind of like an additional resource if you don't feel comfortable going to the institution. So it's in 2 places on our website, but I don't know much about, they did send me some pamphlets and things that I could like put maybe in our lobby and things like that too, to better promote it. So I don't feel like we do too much promoting of it. It's just, it's in 2 places on our website, including our internal audit webpage.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
We have something similar in Clark County School District where people can file complaint, but a lot of times I notice when people file complaints, they don't give enough information to investigate. And so the reporting out though of data to know what those concerns are, even if they're not complete, is really important, because then we can start seeing trend data and concerns in campuses and all the many areas. So is there going to be report out data of that?
Yeah, so you kind of just made me remember something. So for our system, we can respond. So say somebody just is like, I'm mad because I don't know, whatever. They're mad for whatever reason. And we're like, we don't have enough information. There's a way to respond, even if they're anonymous, within the system, where it's like, hey, can you please provide us more information? We want to help you. So there is a way to communicate back and forth to get additional information from them, and also like the progress or the status. We can respond within the system to let them know, like, hey, we've received it, we're looking further into this kind of thing. As for the report, that one's more on a high level, a different type. So usually it'll be like financial, I know it might be HR as a category. So we'll break it down by category, and there'll be some graphs for when we present it annually, and how many we've taken in per quarter, like the trends, how many were anonymous. There's certain things that we hit on in that report.
I would love if we could, Chair, and maybe this is new business, get a walkthrough of the questions asked through Clearview, so we could see the categories and everything for a future follow-up meeting. Is that new business? Or is that on here? New business. Okay, thank you.
And you can actually go to the webpage and like, just, you don't need to submit because it'll submit it, but like you could go type in NSHE or Nevada System of Higher Education once you get to that Clearview page. And once you say like you want to file a complaint, there you could see the different categories, and it'll tell you what each one is for. Because I've done that too when I'm in the system. I'm like, wait, what does the harm to people one mean? So then I'll go back to the main page where you could submit, and then you could see the different categories. So if you ever want to just look.
And do we have the option to add categories or change categories within the system, or is it we bought it how it is, or can we configure it to our needs?
So we went with mostly what it was configured for, but as I'm getting some of these cases right now, I'm like, oh, maybe we should have labeled it differently. We do get charged to adjust the labeling per category, but there is kind of a definition under each one if you're not sure where to go. And then on the back end, if say they're like, I don't know, but it's clearly an academic concern or whatever, we can move it on the back end to the right category for them.
Okay, thank you. It's just really important for our community to be able to report concerns. So
Right.
Thank you for the work.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9 was for information only, and that was a very thorough report in regards to department updates, initiatives, alignment, and risk assessments. So here's your cue, Regent Cruz Crawford. Agenda item number 10, new business. Is there any new business on the table? Regent Cruz Crawford.
No, I don't have any new business. I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
look at it myself first before I take everyone down a rabbit hole with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Boylan.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. I've got two items, and there'll be no discussion on this like we've been warned so often. It'll be just me talking about them. One, I'm going to steal Regent Del Carlo's idea about the money being returned to students, and I'd like to see a deep dive into how that can be done and how we could go about doing something like that. Imagine NSHE being the first, or is there anybody else doing that? But if we could be the first to do something and have money returned to students, incredible. Great idea, Regent Del Carlo. My second one is, of course, the Title IX complaint, and this I'd address to Chancellor Charlton. Could we have a same system, the same procedure across NSHE when we are making any complaints, or I mean, when anybody is making any complaints? So if Chancellor Charlton could look into that and see that the system has the same kind of forms, same kind of questions, same procedures, so we all know what's going on in all the different institutions. Those are the only two I had, sir. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you, Regent Boylan. Actually, Regent Boylan, I'm going to focus back on you. Just for clarity purposes, the second of the two items in which
Yes,
you
sir.
brought up, you would like to get some clarity in regards to the uniformity of the Title IX complaint process. Is that correct?
I love what you said, clarity. You bring clarity to my thoughts, Chair. Wow, I'm impressed. Yes, that's what I'm looking for, so that we have it and the same process throughout NSHE. Same kind of forms, same questions, etc. Basic ones. That the clarity is what I'm looking for.
And,
Yes, sir.
and the first item in regards to money being returned to students, you mentioned if there is the reserve fund for the special course and differential fees, are you referencing or referring to the opportunity to return some of that money from the reserve funds from the differential fee process to have those returned to students? Is that what I'm hearing?
Actually, yes, Chair, and also any other monies that could be returned when we increase the fees willy-nilly. And like President Hilgerson said, they try to keep some for the microscopes and such and other machines that they have at her place. I say that most of those things, machines and things that are used, we should be able to get some grants. And if we have a problem in how to do that, we should ask DRI for their help, because they get tons of grants and they could help us with getting the right grants for machinery and equipment.
Excellent.
Instead of keeping the extra fees for that is what I was trying to get to, sir.
Thank you very much for the clarity on both those items. Are there?
Thank you, sir.
Is there another? Are there any other items for new business? You see me eyeballing you, don't you?
Thank you, Chair. Arskada. Just, I don't want to overstep interim audit chair's schedule, but if we put together a schedule of the course fees, the differential fees, et cetera, by institution for the priority for audits, maybe they could help. What all those different fees are, if we could have like just the priority that we should be looking at. Put like a schedule together of the course fees, differential fees, and I don't know what else kind of fees we have, but I know we have lots of different fees. And maybe they're like the priority. I mean, and President Hilgerson brings up a good point. I mean, you collect those fees to keep the microscopes and all your equipment cutting edge, so. Did you get it? Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. No new business, no additional business. New business not on the table. So we're going to move into second public comment. And I'm going to ask for public comment from the meeting sites first. Is there any public comment at GBC?
There is none at this time.
Thank you. Is there any public comment from the systems office in Las Vegas?
No, there's not.
Is there any public comment from the systems office in Dean Kahn, were you coming up? No, thank you. Is there any public comment from the systems office in Reno? None. Is there any public comment from the beautiful campus of GBC? And SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
There are no callers at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call this meeting adjourned at 9:49.